Alright, let's talk about ancient coin grades. Grading is always a huge topic in modern coin collecting. Sometimes I feel like some collectors care more about the grades than the coins themselves. People argue over it, fight over it. If a coin is an MS 64 or a 65, people send their coins for grading and then they send it again to another person who puts a sticker on the slab to validate the given grade. It's all very subjective, and frankly, I think it's more complicated than it needed to be. And if we talk about ancient coin grading and how on earth we're supposed to grade something so old that was handmade, then things go beyond the subjective and become almost esoteric. So today, let's wrap our heads around the grading of ancient coins, how it is different from modern coin grading. Let's try to make it a little bit simpler and easier to understand. I suspect that's going to be a long video. Let's do some visual exercises, let's grade some coins from my collection, and let me share with you some of my reasons why I think you, as an ancients collector, should not care a whole lot about grades. Let's get started. Alright, where did all of that coin grading idea come from? I mean, at first it sounds logical. It's a verbal way of describing the overall condition and visual appeal of coins in a standardized fashion, so people can make an informed decision on the value of a coin in relation to other similar pieces. Nowadays, we have high-resolution photography where you can look at any coin with an absurd level of detail. Some dealers even have videos of each individual coin so you can have an idea of even the smallest details, like stuff like luster, how light reflects off a coin's surface, surface patina, the relative size of a coin in relation to one's hand. Basically, you have so much visual information about a coin that you could, with a little bit of patience, compare a coin against other similar pieces and come up with an estimation of condition and value based on visual information alone. But of course it was not always like that. Coin collecting is a very old hobby. Ancient coin collecting has been around for centuries. Let me put up on the screen a snippet from an English auction catalog dated from 1844. Back then, there were no pictures on catalogs, so unless you could go to the store and see the coins, you had no idea of what a coin looked like. So you had to have some sort of description of a coin's appearance, how much circulation wear it had, and any aspects of the coin worthy of note. Let's read it. So here we have listings for 5 different Roman imperial denarii. The first one has a very interesting adjective. It says, tolerably preserved. I'm not sure if my tolerable is the same as the dealer's, but well, here it is. The second lot is described as a little scraped. If a little scraped means it has some small scratch marks on it, or if it looks like it was mauled by a tiger, will be forever a mystery. The third coin seems to be quite good. It says, highly preserved with a fine black erugo. I had to look up on the dictionary. Erugo seems to be a fancy word for patina. And the fourth coin seems to be a budget version of the third. It's described as not as fine as the last. And finally, the fifth coin is unceremoniously bashed by the dealer. It is, put simply, poor. At another page, there is a group lot of 4 denarii of Emperor Hadrian and 2 of his wife, Sabina. Here, we have a grade that might sound familiar to modern collectors. It describes all 6 coins as fine. The British standard served as a base to the American Sheldon scale. The Sheldon scale subdivided grades in a 1 to 70 scale, with the number being accompanied by an adjective, such as fine or extremely fine, while the British system, the modern system, retained its original, simpler 7 main states of preservation. And it gets more complicated. Different countries also had different grade names and grading standards. As an example, while places such as the US have a grade called about uncirculated between extremely fine and mint state, countries such as Spain did not originally have this AU grade. They have an uncirculated grade, but not an about uncirculated. Neither did the French. The Germans, however, do have a grade equivalent to AU. Nowadays, with the internet and with the coin market really becoming this truly global thing, at least the rough standards people use to grade ancients have somewhat converged into a unified system, which I will try to explain, but don't be surprised if you buy a coin at, for example, a German auction house, and the little identification card says, Gutes Vorzüglich, excuse my German, and you can't really make a parallel with a US grade, or if you buy from a French dealer and it proudly says TTB, très très beau. Oui, it's so pretty, it's not just pretty, it's very, very pretty. So if you're a modern coin collector who's familiar with the grading standards for modern coins, you will immediately face a lot of new variables when looking at ancient coins for the first time. The grading standards for ancient coins is, as we've seen, not universally codified like it is for modern coins. I mean, think of grading a modern Morgan dollar as more of a science, while grading a Roman denarius as more of an art. Style, artistry, and the consideration of strike characteristics is so subjective that a truly useful standard is not possible. Every collector grading ancient coins will invariably be influenced from individual tastes. The lack of this firm standard sometimes discourages modern coin collectors from collecting ancient coins. But I tell you, don't be discouraged. Grade is much less important for ancient coins. A firm standard is not really necessary. For ancient coins, eye appeal, these two words are key. Eye appeal is much more important than grade. And eye appeal really is whatever looks good to you. At the end of the day, nobody needs an expert or a number to tell them what they like, right? I will go over the grades and what they roughly mean as far as state of preservation goes, but we must take some moments to discuss some of the aspects of this eye appeal part of ancient coins. Very often you will see a coin being given a grade and a short description of its peculiar features. This is quite important. Perhaps the most important variable is that each die was hand engraved, and dies can vary considerably as far as quality goes. Two coins might be of the same type and the same grade, but one might be valued at 5 times or more the price of the other. One might have been struck with dice crudely engraved by a mediocre artist, and the other might be a masterpiece in miniature, struck with superbly engraved dice of the finest style. Style and artistry are not reflected in coin grading, but are very important in assessing the value of ancient coins. You have on your screen now a split screen comparison of two coins struck for the same emperor, Emperor Valerian. There's a clear difference in portrait quality between them. One has a mediocre style and the other one I just think it's wonderful. Next, we have strike and the quality of the flan. Ancient coins were struck by hand. The quality of the strike is important, and very few ancient coins were struck perfectly centered on perfectly round flans. And flan shape usually must be quite irregular to even be mentioned in the description. Centering of the strike on the flan is also rarely perfect, and strikes are seldom completely even. Many graders will consider centering, the shape, and the surface quality of the flans, and the quality of the strike when grading. In fact, NGC even gives separate grades for these. Here's a very good example of a strike issue. This is a French Gros Tournois in beautiful condition. I would give this coin an extremely fine, but if I was grading this coin, I would also have to mention it has obvious flaws. It has a very clear case of a double strike. We can see more clearly at the center part of the design. It was also struck slightly off center, and it has a weak strike next to the part where the flan was misaligned with the die. So you have a coin in a spectacular state of preservation, a very high grade, but it's full of issues, and of course this is going to impact the value. Another grading problem that is more significant for ancient coins is die wear. Ancient mints would sometimes use dies that were very, very worn, and coins struck with worn dies may appear to be worn from circulation. Some of these coins may appear to be very worn. Sometimes they're worn only on one side, yet they still show signs of having a high grade of preservation on the other. It might be difficult to determine if the apparent wear is dye wear or wear from circulation without looking at lots of coins first. Most often dye wear and circulation wear are graded identically when assigning a grade. You might have a coin listed with 2 grades as well, like an EF obverse and a fine reverse, while other people might give the coin the grade of its best side and mention the dye wear. So they would say, this coin is extremely fine, struck with worn reverse dies. So, I think we have enough variables to consider. Let's have a look at some coins and try grading them based on what we learn and the grades that are most commonly used nowadays. By the way, just for us to see how much our standards can vary, if you disagree with a grade I'm giving in this video, leave a comment. Explain to us what grade would you give a certain coin and why. We start with what we could consider to be the low grades: poor, fair, good, and very good. A lot of these names sound very positive, but these are coins that anyone could confidently say they have been very heavily worn. There isn't a whole lot left to see in them. Some of you might be able to identify the type of the coin at most on the very lower grades, but that's pretty much it. Here's a coin graded poor. It is basically a featureless disc. I have no idea what this type of coin used to be. There's nothing left. This coin might have circulated for over a century, and people back in ancient times even added a little countermark to it to give it some sort of visual element and revalidate this disc into a coin once more. And as we can see, even the countermark, which was marked when the coin was already completely blank, the countermark itself is almost gone as well. I only have this coin in my collection because it is so worn, and it cost me €1, so yeah, worth it in my opinion. Next, I don't see enough of a difference between fair and good to make a distinction between them. These are grades that describe a coin that can be identified, at least to its type. Maybe you can even give it a full identification after some effort of examining the coin and comparing it against others in better condition, but not all of the design can be seen. Parts of it, if not the majority of it, has been worn away, have been eroded away. Here's an interesting example of a coin that I consider having a very good obverse and a good reverse. Let's start with the obverse. This is a very rare denarius of Emperor Otho. This coin has seen better days. So many scratches. On the obverse, the main outline of the bust can be seen. Otho can be clearly identified by the outline of his wig. We can even make out some residual details of his hair curls, but any other features on his portrait have been worn away. The legends are also mostly visible, which allows us to indirectly identify his coin based on the letters that are left, particularly the O of the word Otho and Caesar after it. The reverse is in even worse shape. I would grade it as good. We can see a victory walking to the right. Sadly, there's nothing left but her faint outline. On a well-preserved coin, the reverse of this type would read Victoria Otonis, but here we can barely see an A from Victoria and Oton from Otonis. Hopefully this helps us understand the gradient from poor to very good. In very short terms, it's a transition from basically a featureless disc starting at poor to a coin with the remains of all of its main design features, but with some parts of it already missing due to excessive wear. This would be in the very good end of the scale. There are quite a lot of collectors who dismiss these coins entirely, claiming they're just too worn and too ugly to be considered for their collections. And I mean, it's okay. Having a minimum threshold for aesthetic beauty and condition is perfectly reasonable. Personally, I also give a lot of value to a coin's historical significance. So in the case of this Otto Denarius here, he was a fascinating pretender to the imperial throne in the chaotic year after the fall of Nero. Can I afford an Otto in mint state? No, I can't, unless I sell one of my kidneys. So a coin graded good that has enough design elements left for me to research the coin. fits my budget, and it's perfectly reasonable, at least for me. And if you offer me an equally worn bronze coin featuring, I don't know, Cleopatra, or a worn Aidemar denarius for a price I can reasonably afford, who the hell cares about the wear? It's a Cleopatra or an Aidemar. I would grab it. Next, we get to the most popular fine grades. These are the grades that most people consider collectible. These are F, VF, EF, also called XF, meaning fine, very fine, and extremely fine. To be within this category, that is, to qualify at least as a fine, the coin must have all of its original design elements, meaning wear must not have erased any of the major visual elements of a coin's original design to a point that it is unrecognizable. There's a big difference between these main grades. I mean, there's quite a lot of difference from the fine to a very fine, and from a very fine to an extremely fine. So it's normal to add intermediate grades between each of the major grades. The names of these grades can vary as well. Between fine and very fine, I personally name it as fine plus. Some people prefer to call it about and then the next grade. So instead of saying a coin above a fine is a fine plus, they would say it is about very fine. Well, it's basic semantics really. You get the idea. Other graders will go the extra mile and add 2 grades between each grade. So we would have fine, fine plus, or good fine, whatever, then about very fine, and finally very fine. I personally think that's more of a sales strategy to make the description sound better, but you do you. As for me, I just prefer 1 intermediate grade per major grade. When grading these coins, the description of any positive and especially any negative characteristics needs to be disclosed. While it doesn't surprise anyone that a coin in very good, for example, has problems, I mean, no one will be surprised if a coin grade the very good, for example, has scratches. The thing becomes different when you go from fine and above. If a coin has anything going on with it, aside from wear that is detrimental to its appearance, like a die crack, it needs to be added to its description. Being honest and telling the truth is a major virtue in numismatics. So, okay, let's look at a baseline fine coin. This Roman Republican denarius is quite worn, that's true, but all of the design elements are present in this coin. There hasn't been enough wear to completely erase entire parts of the coin. This would bring the coin down to the lower grades territory, but this coin isn't particularly stunning either. It saw extensive circulation to a point that its design has lost a lot of resolution. On the obverse, we see the outline of the bust, and it is clearly visible, but wear has erased a lot of detail. There were, for example, little pellets meant to represent the beard on this portrait. They're gone from wear. The hair curls are only apparent at the very top of his head. His ears gone, the eyes and the nose are still relatively well defined since they were a bit lower on the coin surface, so they were spared from the circulation wear. And to the left, the legends that read Oscar are still visible. That's a key. The legends must be visible, even if they're blurry like this. All in all, a coin that is well worn, but a coin that is complete. That's what a fine means. On the reverse, it's the same thing. We have the priestly implements at the center of the design, all very worn, but the design is complete. So you can still clearly make out what you're looking at. It doesn't blur with the fields. The legends, Domitius Consul Iterum Imperator, are also fully readable, despite the letters being fuzzy. I'm curious, how would you grade this coin? Now, let's go to a fine plus. Take a look at this Greek tetradrachma from Antiochus I. At this grade, not only can we see the main parts of the design, but we can also clearly distinguish each part of the design. While at the previous coin, we couldn't see some parts of it, like the ear or the beard from the figure, that were completely gone, or the hair that fused with the rest of the head. Here, in this case, on Antiochus' face, we can see everything. His ear, all of his curly hair, his brow, his eyes, the royal headband, it's all there. However, we still have enough wear to considerably reduce the visual resolution of the design. We can't make out fine strands of hair, only the largest flocks. The ear and his face look a bit puffy, and wear still detracts from the coin's overall beauty. It's the same thing for the reverse. We have a seated image of Apollo, and all of the subcomponents of the design, they're visible. All of his body parts, the arrow he's holding is fully separated from his hand, the bow and the stone he's sitting in are clearly distinguishable, and the legends, despite being the most worn part of the design, they're still readable. I would say the reverse is slightly inferior to the obverse in this example, but still, both sides, I would consider they're well within what I would consider fine plus. Now we go to very fine. I'll show you a couple of coins that I consider to be VFs because that's a kind of a large grade in the sense that there's a lot of different coins with slightly different levels of preservation that kind of like fit in this grade. That's probably because grades higher than VF require coins to start being in really outstanding condition. A very fine coin, it's supposed to be pretty, no arguing about it. It is a coin that has circulated. It's perfectly acceptable to have some degree of wear on the high parts of the relief and some of the details, but any legends are supposed to be clearly visible. The design of the coin needs to have high resolution to be clearly visible, and smaller details can show wear, but they must be discernible. Let's look at this Greek drachma of Philip III. This is a typical VF coin. The bust of Heracles is quite pretty. We can see the face in great detail. There's a bit of wear on the high parts of his ear and on his flocks of hair, but it's all there. And you can see the details in his inner ear. You can see that his hair is wavy. On the back of his head, the lion mane is also clearly visible, even if the highest parts are a bit worn. And overall, the obverse is very pleasant to look at. It has an acceptable level of wear, but it is still undoubtedly a pretty coin. I think that's the key name for a VF coin. It is a very pretty coin. On the reverse, the seated Zeus is also clearly visible. He's sitting on a throne, and we can appreciate the small details on both of the throne's legs. To the right, the name Philippo can be read easily. Zeus's legs are clearly visible too. We can see each individual leg, although his left one has had a bit of the details on the fabric covering it erased by wear. His torso is also easy to see. We can make out different muscle groups on his chest and his arms, although some of it on the highest parts has also been obscured by wear. But it's nothing that detracts too much of the overall appearance. And finally, his head and the eagle he's holding are also clearly visible, with the highest portions worn slightly by circulation. Pretty great coin, I really like it. Next, we have a denarius of Emperor Hadrian. Outstanding long legends around the bust. Sadly, the coin was struck slightly off-center. Remember, we need to disclose this, meaning we can't read the legends in its entirety. So that's something we will mention when grading the coin. The bust is quite pretty, but circulation wear is quite obvious in this coin. It's even easier to spot than the previous drachma. Right at the highest part, where Hadrian's ear connects to his hair and the laurel crown, we have a patch of circulation wear there, which blurs the whole thing together. His beard is also blurred at the central part, while we can still appreciate the granular texture of his beard around the worn patch. Finally, at the bottom part of his portrait, the two pieces of fabric that go across his chest get blurred with the cuirass at the bottom right part. A very pretty coin, but a coin with clear signs of wear. VF it is. On the reverse, we have more of the same. The letters on the legends are really sharp, but sadly the coin was struck off-center, so nearly half of them were left off-plan. At the center, we have a seated image of Concordia, and all of her highest points have an even distribution of wear throughout the entire design. Her chest, her face, and her left leg show the clearest evidence of circulation. There was not a lot of details on her head, for example, to start with. The image is quite tiny, but still, we can see that any eyes or facial details on her have been erased. Apart from some minor details on her hair, the upper part, they're still visible. All in all, a solid VF coin, with the added note of it being struck off-center. Now, VF Plus. We're getting into fancy coin territory. If a VF grade allowed wear on the high parts of the design, for a coin to be good very fine or VF Plus, the tolerance for the amount of wear is significantly smaller here. What we have here is an Indo-Greek drachma of King Menander. Apart from a very small issue in the first letter beta on the left part of the legends, all of the letters are pretty much untouched. The same can be said for the bust. The very elaborate helmet Menander is wearing shows very limited wear. The line that marks the brim of the helmet is a little bit thicker than the rest, which might indicate some wear. This helmet also features a horn, which also displays some minor weaknesses at the highest part. If I want to be very pedantic about this coin, I could also say that his cheek has some wear as well. Someone who grades generously could easily give this coin an extremely fine grade. As for the reverse, we have a very sharp Athena advancing to the left, holding her shield and a thunderbolt. Out of the gate, we can see that sadly, the reverse has been struck somewhat off-center. Some letters are cut. The reverse is in slightly worse shape than the obverse. Athena's chest has some flatness due to wear, and down on her very muscular leg, her left butt cheek has some wear as well. And I just realized I'm not mature enough for making a critique of this coin. I just said that Tina has a flat chest and someone rubbed her left butt cheek too hard. Anyways, a great example of a VF Plus coin. And we get to EF, extremely fine. Here we need to start being excessively pedantic with our coins. I would understand completely if you put a comment below saying you think the previous coin should grade better than this one. As I said plenty of times before in this video, grading ancients is very subjective. Anyways, God, I love this Denarius of Emperor Hadrian. Not only the portrait is executed in spectacular, realistic style and high relief, but the flan is also large and impressive. The coin is heavy for its type, at nearly 4 grams. This is one of my favorite coins in my entire collection. What does it make for a coin to be EF? Only very minor wear is allowed at this grade. Remember the previous coin of Hadrian had a fair bit of wear on the beard? In this case, there's nothing here. His beard is razor sharp. His ear and each individual leaf of his laurel crown are all intact and show a clear separation between them. At the upper right corner of his ear, we can see a tiny bit of a connection between the contour of the ear and a flock of hair, which seems to be some minor flatness from wear. That's pretty much it for wear on this coin. It's very minor, but if we want to be honest, we can't call this coin mint state because, well, it isn't. It did circulate, so it has a very gentle wear to it. But mind you, this is a high-grade coin, but it is not a problem-free coin. We have 2 important issues that must be mentioned for a coin of such high grade. First, a series of die cracks around the coin, which are detrimental to the coin's eye appeal and final value. Also, around the legends, particularly on the right side of the portrait, we have a granular texture close to the letters. This is a sign of die rust. The die used to make this coin was most likely made out of iron, and the area around the legends was starting to corrode at that point. This is also a flaw that needs to be mentioned. The seated image on the reverse seems to have a little bit more wear. The letters are perfectly sharp, the beading around the legends is also crisp, but the wear in the high parts of this reverse make me wonder if it shouldn't be given a VF Plus instead of a full EF. That's how hard it is for a coin to be completely EF. It must look fantastic on both sides. So for my final verdict, I give this coin an EF obverse and a VF plus reverse. Still, a wonderful denarius I'm super proud to own. Then, what comes next? Well, the last coin we saw had very limited wear, almost nothing. So the next natural step would be a coin that did not see any circulation. A mint state ancient coin from the depths of the past, 2,000 years of history, straight to your collection, untouched. A numismatic miracle. Here's where you as a collector should be a bit cautious in order not to fall for the flashy names some dealers and graders give to the highest grades so they can ask for a higher price. Above extremely fine, NGC, for example, has nothing less than 6 other grades. Choice extremely fine, about uncirculated, choice about uncirculated, mint state, choice mint state, and gem mint state. Sometimes they even put a little star after that grade, and people fall for that. I've seen some people pay astronomical sums of money for a coin just because it had a couple of superlatives at the little label on its slab. Other dealers, on the other hand, are very conservative. Some, at most, give a virtually perfect coin a name akin to Choice EF, like a little bit above extremely fine. Let me show you a curious coin so we can elaborate on this concept of mint state coins. Look at this thing. Check out the dark crust over this early Islamic coin. Mind you, this is not an mint state coin. This is what a silver coin looks like, straight out of the hoard it was found in. No cleaning whatsoever. Under the crust, we can actually see it's still in pretty great shape. You see, the point I want to make, coins are made out of metal. Apart from gold, which is remarkably chemically stable, and you might be able to find gold coins as gorgeous as the day they were made, any other metal will have gone through some sort of reaction on its surface after all these years, and will have received some sort of cleaning. Some are very well cleaned, others are not. Some of the best professionals in coin cleaning can do wonders and revive mint luster from underneath that superficial mineral layer that every coin ends up developing. Even gold, so chemically inert, needs to have at least some sort of superficial cleaning done to remove any dirt or deposits from its surface, from whichever container it was stored in. My point is, time for a hot take. I think there is no such thing as a mint state or an uncirculated ancient coin. You can call your best coins for sale mint state if you want. Absolutely. I'll decide if I want to buy it from you or not by looking at the pictures, from looking at the coin, not the label. I don't want this video to be a rant on coin marketing. We're here to look at some pretty coins. So I've picked up a couple of pieces from my collection that show very little wear, maybe virtually no wear. You might call them MS, uncirculated, choice, EF if you want. I typically just call them some pretty damn nice looking coins. And we start with this piece from Emperor Diocletian. Apart from this very significant die crack at 12 o'clock that goes all the way to the portrait, if we grade this exclusively based on circulation wear, damn, I don't think I see any of it. This coin has a reflective glow to it that is very hard to capture on camera, especially around the fields next to the letters. It's a really outstanding piece. By having a picture of the coin up, I can expand on why I think this has no discernible wear. The radiate crown on his head shows no sign of wear or fuzziness, and all of the silvering is still there. The hair and the beard look intact. The outline of his ear doesn't show any signs of thickening or any areas that indicate wear, and the letters are incredibly crisp. If I could add any other complaints against it, it would be that the strike could have been a bit stronger. I've seen similar coins of this type with a higher relief. Heading to the reverse, we definitely have the confirmation that this coin has a weak strike issue. Look at the image of the goddess Felicitas. Her head is super well defined and it also doesn't show any signs of circulation. However, as we move down, There's a fuzziness on her image that for me is more in line with a weak strike or a die that was on its way out instead of actual circulation wear. Look at her extended arm and the caduceus she's holding. It's barely noticeable. There was very little metal displacement at the time of strike. The column she's leaning against on the right side is also super faint. When you see a coin like this with parts that are very well defined and other parts that are weak, it's a typical sign of a coin not having been properly struck. This coin is a great example of the difference between wear, which I think it doesn't have, and manufacture issues, which I think it does have. Next, check out this coin of Emperor Probus. The art, the style in this coin isn't particularly spectacular, but damn, that coin is in nice shape. The silvering layer this coin was originally giving is basically intact, except for the very highest parts on the letters and the design, which could indicate some very gentle circulation. It could also be that the silvering peeled off due to chemical reactions throughout the centuries while it was buried, or as a result of the cleaning process after it was unearthed. I personally don't think this coin circulated. Sadly, it too isn't without its flaws. There's a die crack going from the edge of the flan all the way to the emperor's nose, which is a shame, and there are small green copper deposits all over the coin, which give it this greenish hue over the silvered surface. Whoever cleaned this coin stopped the cleaning before removing these, probably fearing it would damage this great silvering layer, and I thank that person for it. Going further would risk damaging this coin. The reverse is impressive as well. Look at how the silvering on the fields reflects the light. It's mirror-like. Once again, I don't see any signs of circulation here, and now we actually have a strong strike, different from the previous coin. Every design element is strongly imprinted on the flan, and all details are clearly visible in both figures at the center. We can even see the folds on their sleeves. Really impressive reverse. It isn't perfect, however. We have the copper deposits on the reverse as well, although there is less of it compared to the obverse. The flan crack is quite noticeable, and to the right of the design, sadly, we have a bit of softness on the legends. Even the beading looks flat in that area. Basically, in my eyes, it is a perfect coin in regards to circulation, meaning it doesn't have any, but it's an imperfect coin overall. And frankly, who cares? I'm not demanding, and it looks damn good, and I really like it. But I know some of you watching this video only want numismatic perfection, only coins in pristine condition. Some graders who won't use the term mint state to describe an ancient coin will use instead the term virtually as struck. I like this term much better than calling an ancient mint state. It's more honest and describes the coin accurately. Most of you will be expecting me to wrap up this video with some super fancy gold medallion in a mint state, but instead I'll show you a copper coin because it is just so unusual. Base metal coins don't come to us in good shape. They circulated a whole lot, they were not hoarded, and the very metal they are made out of is much more chemically reactive. But then there's this little guy here that sold at auction recently. Just look at that. This is a humble quadrans, the lowest denomination from the early Roman Empire. This little coin has virtually no wear, and even more surprising, it shows shiny reddish patches, just like a modern coin that left the mint a couple of months ago. But this coin is over 2,000 years old. Can a coin that old, made out of copper, still retain mint luster like that? Technically, it can. If you store a coin in a place really low on oxygen, like some sort of swampy area, it could, theoretically, come out of the ground looking like this. But in this case, since this coin was previously at a famous collection of Roman bronzes, it has had enough time to repatinate and all. I think this coin had a patina previously and it was expertly cleaned, revealing this wonderful coin underneath the patina. The coin isn't very flashy, the art is simple. This was a very small amount of money. People at the mint wouldn't spend very long engraving the dice for such coins. But as far as condition goes, this is as fresh as it gets, period. There's virtually no wear. On the obverse, we have the modius at the center without signs of any wear on its high parts. The legends are as sharp as they can be, and there's even a substantial number of flow lines radiating outwards, something common on gold coins but quite hard to find on bronzes. The reverse has this very impressive reddish hue all over the field. The letters don't show any sign of wear, and you can see this coin was made when the die was fresh, because even the tiny serifs on the letters are all sharp and easy to see. Normally, these start getting clogged and wear away as the dies get used, but here we see they're all very easy to spot. Everything is so sharp. A wonderful coin, despite its humble origins. The auction house even considered giving this coin the designation FDC, French for Fleur de Coin, flower of the die, meaning a piece that not only is in perfect condition, but also a coin that was made when the die was fresh off the engraver's hands, with all of its details still intact. So, we went through all of the grades, from a very humble little coin that doesn't show barely anything on it, to some exquisite pieces that look like they were minted yesterday. Now that you have a rough idea of what you're supposed to expect from each coin grade, and you want to know how much a coin is supposed to cost in relation to its grade, I have made another video in the past called How to Discover the Price of Ancient Coins that you should watch next. In this video, I teach you how to research the price of coins online. So with the knowledge of these two videos and some practice, you should have an easier time judging the coins available on the market and making an informed decision if you should buy something or not. Alright, now I want to hear from you. What's your opinion about ancient coin grading? If you enjoyed the value you got from this video, consider donating to the channel. The link is in the pinned comment. Also, leave a like and consider subscribing for more ancient coin content. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon!